All right, good morning. Well, you know, first of all, I'm so happy to be here. The New York Public Library, as they mentioned, Jason mentioned, has this incredible exhibit, which is a great backdrop, I think, for the work we're going to do today together. But I have to say, I always feel smarter when I'm at the New York Public Library, particularly in this room. And I must say, I feel a lot younger being with this crowd in this room. And the good thing is, I know that when you're looking at your phones, it doesn't mean you're bored. It means that you're talking to your friends about how good the talk is, hopefully, right? So. And I have to say, I love this event for many reasons. And one of the things, I don't know, when you guys got your food, they have this, you know, doodle on a napkin. And one of them, I grabbed 3 of them that I thought were really terrific. One was Rebel with a lipstick, which we love. For the Mac people, we have to keep this. One is, and I don't really understand this, but I love it, and it's very Mac. It's great being a giraffe. So I don't know if that's an effort, but particularly I'm writing. And this one, which is, of course, you know, Yoo-hoo, it's Friday. So I'm in on that. And I really appreciate, I know it's kind of a crummy day out there, so I just want to really thank people. I also, you know, I stand on the shoulders of many, many people. I've been lucky enough to have a lot of great jobs. I have a great family, but I also have a great company and a great brand and a great Mac Gates Fund board. So I want to recognize Carrie Maloney, who's one of our board members, who not only sat through a important and long meeting yesterday, but got up early to be here today, and also the Mac Gates Fund staff. We have Dimitri, Aymara, and David, who are Mac makeup artists and Mac executives who basically sell Viva Glam every day, and Jody Aarons and Andy Prey and Molly Hess, who helped me get the word out about the good work. So here we go. So as I mentioned, I've been lucky enough to inherit this awesome brand and fund. And it's funny because I actually mispronounced the theme. I thought it was, what is it, rebel. I thought it was the verb. It's rebel, it's the noun, right? It's either. So we'll go in between the noun and the verb. How about that? And what has been interesting and terrific for me in my career in I've been now at the Mac Gates Fund for 8 years, is I inherited this incredible model that actually preceded cause-related marketing, and actually, as we'll talk a little bit later, isn't actually cause-related marketing because we don't market. And I was thinking with regard to the work that we do and the work that we're doing here today is, where does creativity come from? And in my own life, I remember I was struggling over something, and I was very upset not only about the underlying issue and that I was struggling. And a good friend of mine said, when you struggle, it means that actually something is important. And one of the things I think that has come out of the AIDS movement is this incredible creativity. And in the case of Viva Glam, and for so many people in this room, it was that people were dying and that our friends were dying. And basically, people had different reactions, and you can see that in the exhibit that's here. As the folks mentioned, I used to work at God's Love. So when her friends started dying, Ganga Stone started delivering meals because she realized they were too sick to prepare meals. And when the founders of Mac, Frank and Frank, when their friends started dying, they did what they did best, which is they created a campaign to raise money. And as I mentioned, I worked at God's Love We Deliver, and I actually used to get funds from Mac AIDS Fund. And what always struck me as genius about this whole effort was it wasn't, as honestly so many nonprofits efforts are. It wasn't somber, it wasn't sort of bleeding on the rug, it wasn't, oh my God. It didn't in any way feel sorry for itself. I actually had an interesting conversation a couple weeks ago with Barbara Corcoran, who founded Corcoran Realty, who's on that show Shark Tank. I don't know if you guys ever watched that show. It's a great show. So people get up there and they like show their business and like a couple of minutes. And I think, oh my God, how do they make these decisions? And what she said to me, which is interesting, is she never picks anybody who feels sorry for themselves, because the sign of a creative, great person is they don't feel sorry for themselves. And I think that what was amazing about Frank and Frank at the time was they didn't feel sorry for themselves. was they basically got busy. And they created this incredible campaign. And why is this campaign incredible? First of all, as you can imagine, I speak at a lot of corporate giving conferences, and I would say half the room usually has never heard of MAC. I had one guy come up to me and say, so you sell lipsticks and you sell computers? I say, no, just lipstick. He couldn't figure out RuPaul fit in with the computers. I said, no, it's a different company. You know, we're owned by Estee Lauder. Anyway, but the fact that we could have raised over $350 million selling lipstick was mind-boggling to a lot of people. But this slide, often I get like, because basically what was so amazing when they launched this campaign in 1994 is not only, I mean, you can see the positions, and I'm actually going to start to walk around because I get bored standing up at the front of the room. So I'm just going to go behind this little screen just for a sec. Here I go. So what is amazing about this, if you see it, is, first of all, who the hell could make those positions, right, and get back out of them? But, you know, he's a drag queen. And so I asked, actually, one of the original employees, you know, why do you think they went with the drag queen? He said, well, the original store in Toronto, the bouncer was a drag queen, because he was friends of Frank and Frank. And they launched this campaign, and as I mentioned, what I think is brilliant about it is it's sexy, it's joyous, it's sexual, because at the end of the day, if you look honestly at a lot of bad HIV prevention that we've done, where do? They do it in health class, they're somber. That's not what sex is about, right? That's not what joyous is about. And this campaign was really brilliant in that it woke people up, it was disruptive, as people talk now about disruptive innovation, and at the same time, it was a great product. Because one of the things that we've learned from the work that we do is people don't buy things they don't want, even for a good cause. If you have a good product for a good cause, there's actually research showing now that people will pay about 3 or 4% more than that. So this is a picture of Rue with the founders, who we call Frank and Frank, because what were their names? Frank and Frank. And MAC was really a little brand that could. It was a brand that was founded by these two men, and one of them was a professional hairdresser, and one of them was a professional makeup artist. And the whole idea really was that we would bring professional makeup to, you know, the everyday man and woman. And the credo of the company is all races, all sexes, all ages. And that we live the dream every day. We all look different. If you go to a MAC counter, there's people of different weights, people of different colors, people of different ages. And it's a brand, I think, if you look at who buys this stuff, is pretty much across the age groups and across genders. I have a lot of, actually when I do media on TV, a lot of the men sort of say, you know, I really love your foundation. Actually, I believe Rudy Giuliani at one point, I don't know if he still does, wore MAC foundation. Which we're happy for, right? That it is basically, it is a company that is, I think, and a brand that is very loving. You know, that the tent is big enough for all of us. And we would rather have you live with a drug problem and live with AIDS than die. And that was a really revolutionary thing for a company to do at the time. And it's still revolutionary. In fact, I was in London last week, and I said to one of our grantees there, Positive East, what do we do best and what do we need to work on? And he said, what you do best is you have makeup artists every day that sell this product in the store for AIDS. He said, do you know what that does in terms of destigmatizing AIDS? And it's one of the big challenges that we still have. So this is a picture. In 1994, the man, does anybody know who this picture is? Carrie will know. This man is Leonard Lauder, who is really one of the great patrons. First of all, he's the son of the woman Estee Lauder founded our company, but the Lauders have been incredibly generous to breast cancer. And the Lauders bought the company. And when they bought the company, because they were the Lauders, they understood that Frank and Frank were a family business. And they understood that the MAC AIDS Fund was so important. And so what they did was they kept the Viva Glam model, which for me, and for all of us who are lucky enough to work for the fund, is this incredible model. It's 100% of the selling price. So if you go out and you buy a Viva Glam, it's $17.50. All $17.50 of that goes to the MAC AIDS Fund. So I always say it's guilt-free shopping, but what it has meant is that as the brand has grown to over $2 billion, the fund has grown. So this year alone, we're gonna raise about $42 million selling lipstick, right? And it created, I think what was cool about it was pre-consumer marketing, it created this sort of consumer activism, which is you can have a great lipstick, you can do some guilt-free shopping, and you can contribute money. And you don't have to feel somber about it, but you can, you know, feel joyous about it. So what's amazing again about this in terms of destigmatized, here's Leonard Lauder, hugging a drag queen, and that's a testament, I think, to Leonard Lauder. But this was early in the 1990s, and that's Frank. And the rest, this is the creativity of Mac. Jody highlighted this for me. Is that these are models, and this color is at that point Katie Lang, who's on Broadway now. Old spokesmodels never die here at Mac. We just go on to new shows. This is the color. This was the color of of Viva Glam, but for her year. Now the other is after RuPaul, they picked a lesbian, Katie Lang, and then Elton John. So, and this is the history. Now, Mac is by nature a brand of underdogs, right? Every single person that we have picked is what my boss John Dempsey calls the real deal. People are, the thing that we have seen is that the most successful spokesmodels are the ones who are very open and very honest about drug problems. I started actually in this year with Pamela Anderson. And I remember when she was selected, people were like, oh, Pamela Anderson, I don't know. And she got up, I went to my first trip, actually went to Ireland with her. And I was raised Irish Catholic. All of my grandparents are from Ireland. And I thought, oh my God, how is this gonna go? She got up and she talked to this crowd about having hepatitis. And she said no one should be ashamed of having a sexually transmitted disease. And then nobody said anything. I'm like, oh my God, she said sex in this room. And then she said, you know who I got it from? I got it from my lousy ex-husband. And then the whole room, like, everyone has somebody they can't stand who's their ex, right? and everybody has those sorts of realities in their lives. And that's where I think this campaign has really worked. I mean, we've had Dita Von Teese, who's a burlesque star. And I'll tell you, my boss used to say Dita Von Teese would go to a grocery store opening for us. She worked so hard to raise so much money. She was terrific. But again, she talked about her life. We've had, you know, I've been lucky enough to work with Fergie and Lady Gaga and Cyndi Lauper. I don't know if you guys remember, but one of the brilliant moves that Lady Gaga did was she said, I'm monogamous. That one line created more press, and really I think more young people thinking about this than ever before. And the reality is people listen to rock stars in a way they don't listen to public health officials, in the way they don't listen to their mothers. So the brilliance, again, of the creativity of this campaign is, who is the messenger? And they basically went from RuPaul to rock stars. And basically, person after person, my boss John keeps saying, I'm gonna retire. After Lady Gaga and Cyndi Lauper, we thought we could never raise more money. But somehow, year after year, we have. And I'll tell you, there's several pieces to that and why this has really worked. One is, it was a family business. I think some of the best giving campaigns have always come out of family businesses because those values are so strong and the cause is so meaningful. And that doesn't mean that every person who buys MAC lipstick or every person who works for MAC would give that $17.50 to AIDS. But they admire us that we give it to AIDS, and they admire it that we've done it for so long. The other is the staff, which is why it's so important that the staff is here. Day in and day out, this lipstick, if you go into a MAC store, I think there's 1,500 things in the store. The makeup artists are the ones who sell the lipstick, who, when someone says, you know, I want an everyday lipstick, and then they talk about where the money goes. And we work a lot on staff engagement, which I'll talk a little bit before. And then honestly, you have to be able to break through the clutter. I mean, you think about it in your own lives, there is 5 million messages, right? And what are the messages that you hear, and what are the messages that actually make you do something? And I've been exposed actually now a little bit more to marketing, and marketing is an incredible field. Like, how do you actually get somebody to do something? And we, as I mentioned, are not a company that markets. So the question is, how is it that we could get this message to people to get them to buy the lipstick? And basically, it's been largely word of mouth and also working with the stars. All right, so this is a picture. I love this picture. So we hit 250 million. We think, what do? Well, we have Leonard Lauder give Cyndi Lauper a cupcake. But this was, I think the other thing, honestly, is those of us who have been involved in the campaign is, it's real to us and it makes a difference. And it's kind of, you know, when you're, particularly with this snow, you know when you like hit a curb and there's a lady that with all the snow and the water, and you think, oh, you have all the stuff in your mind that you gotta do. And you see either an older person or a woman with a carriage, and you think, do I stop? Do I stop and help them up the subway stairs? Do I stop? This is a campaign that lets you stop and make a difference. And as you run around and do all those things in life, that stopping that moment is really critical and important. So where are we today? So we've been at this now at the MAC AIDS Fund over 20 years. Carrie keeps saying we should celebrate, we should do something. I think one of the biggest advancements we've been at this in terms of the AIDS business for about 25 years. And 2 years ago, there was a huge innovation, and it's called treatment as prevention, right? And the bottom line is, what was figured out was you could take drugs, and if you're living with HIV, and lower the amount of virus in your body so much so that you could live a relatively long, healthy life, although you have to be on these crummy drugs that don't make you feel very good often. And you could not transmit the virus to the person that you're intimate with. So that's a really big deal. So that one advancement was a bigger advancement than we had had in the previous 23 years. So now the global challenge, which is where I need your help, is how do we actually end AIDS with this knowledge? And one of the things that was striking, I'm lucky enough to be on this UN Commission to End AIDS, and I was in London last week, and the man who runs the Global Fund basically said, we have raised as much money as we're gonna raise. We have to rethink how we do this and how we spend money in order to end AIDS. And if you look at it, basically the number of people living with AIDS now is 35.2 million, and there's only 8 million of those people on treatment. So then the question is, how is it that we put 15 million people on treatment, basically only even half of people by 2015? And the question then becomes for me is, what is the role that MAC plays? And as the woman who introduced me said, I was lucky enough to work at George Soros' foundation previously. And one of the things that I've learned is that there is no way that foundations alone or nonprofits alone can solve the big problems of the world, like poverty or AIDS. That we need every sector to basically do as good as it can and to maximize the good that it can do. So my question then is, what role does MAC play? And these are some icons that basically talk about how are we gonna end AIDS. We're gonna reduce sexual transmission, we're gonna close the resource gap, we're gonna eliminate stigma, and we're part of all of that. A lot of what we've also been trying to do is translate impact. So this is an image of some of the work that we're doing, is we try and say, okay, so if you buy one lipstick, you're a consumer activist, what does that actually do? So one lipstick gives medicine for newborn babies, 5 newborn babies. Another example is one lipstick, 1 year of clean needles for injection drug users. I have to say, that our failure around injection drug users as a global community is really sad. It costs 6 cents, even if you're a total fiscal conservative, 6 cents for a clean needle. To treat someone living with HIV for 1 year is $30,000. So even if you don't care about people, which is horrific, the numbers are horrible, right? And it works. And I know unfortunately there's a big ick factor around injection drug use, but let's face it, and this is something we talk about a lot at MAC, everybody has somebody in their life, if not themselves, that struggles with addiction. People use different substances. You know, sadly, we just saw Philip Seymour Hoffman passed away. I mean, this is serious stuff, and there's something that we can do. And so this is something that we talk to our staff about, and we talk in our stores about. Okay, so here we are present day. This is our current Viva Glam spokeswoman, who is RIHANNA. Yesterday was her 26th birthday. Let me just see, this is really interesting. I always ask, how many people in this room follow RIHANNA on Instagram? A lot, right? So here's the deal. She's a really powerful girl. She has the incredible, basically, social media, the largest social media following of anyone in the world at this point. And we've started working with her. We visited with her in Barbados in one of the charities that we fund down there, Dance for Life. She's doing an incredible job. And we have now targeted $43 million to raise with her. And we're hoping, you know, the other thing about RIHANNA, as you know from those of you who follow her on Instagram and those of you who don't, is she sometimes posts sort of revealing photos on Instagram, right? Sometimes people think, ooh, I don't know if I would have put that photo up if that was me, right? But at the same time, she's real, right? People, you know, and honestly, for my 12-year-old son, I'm a lot cooler now that I've actually hung out with RIHANNA. You know, she has, I know, he does not think I'm a rebel, by the way. Anyway, I'll save that for another day. But in terms of, again, in terms of our credibility, in terms of getting to young people, at this point, 1 out of every 2 new infections in the world is in people under 24. See how horrible that is? And this is always where I say to people, please speak to the young people in your life, particularly if they're not your child, because they don't listen to parents, understandably. Reach out and talk with kids. It's just one mistake, unfortunately. And that's the picture. This increases my cool factor. You can tell who the charity lady is, though, the one all the way over on the right. My mother, and I also have to admit, that dress is pleather. Has anybody discovered pleather? if you travel a lot, you don't have to iron it. It's because essentially it's plastic. You take the dress out and you're like, wow, I don't have to, anyway. But this is one of the things that we do is we do these appearances in the store, and the man to the left is a superstar. He's my boss. I was telling people, actually, I do have my employee evaluation later today. So you should always keep track of your boss as a superstar. And he actually is a superstar because he's the guy who picks all these famous people to sell the lipstick. And RIHANNA, and all the way to the left, and this is one of the sort of what I call the Viva and the Glam. The Viva piece is the substantive work that we're doing, and the man all the way to the left is Michelle Sidibe, who's the head of UNAIDS, who is a rock star to me, and who's really overseeing all of these efforts to end AIDS. But he had 2 CDs that he wanted to have signed for his niece. I mean, it's an amazing sort of mixture of the Viva and the Glam. But that, friends, is really what sells the lipstick. So, and this is a picture of isn't this awesome? I work with such creative people. Every year we have a World AIDS Day volunteerism, and we have a photo contest around the world. And this is Hungary's photo submission a couple of years ago. And this is what we did one year when we sold Viva Glam, is we had tattoos, which the staff, so if you bought a Viva Glam, you got a free tattoo. So this is the Hungarian staff. And this, I think, is a good showing of the rebelliousness of our staff. MAC as a company is a company of makeup artists, and these people are super talented and could work for anybody. A big value to the business of what we do is that people stay with us. And one of the top 3 reasons they always list why they work for MAC is because of the MAC AIDS Fund. Again, it might not be that they would give the money to AIDS, but it means something to them that we give the money to AIDS. So, in terms of moving forward, one of the ways that we're trying to really rethink AIDS is to rethink AIDS within the context of poverty. Poverty has been a huge friend to AIDS. If you are poor, you are 5 times more likely to be infected with HIV than if you're not. What is striking is if, for instance, in South Africa, you are poor, you are 11 times more likely to be killed by a car. I don't know if folks are familiar with South Africa, but one of the biggest causes of death there, unfortunately, are roadside accidents. And you are 10 times more likely to be the victim of domestic violence. And so one of the things that we're trying to do globally is to look at AIDS as sort of a pathfinder, as a catalyst to solving some of these issues, some of the sicknesses around poverty. And it's one of the things that we're working with UNAIDS. The other big challenge is translating impact. As I mentioned, as you see, you're on your phones, there's a lot of messages out there. How do we convince people that AIDS is an area that you still want to invest in? A lot of people think, hell, AIDS is over. Why is that relevant? Why is that relevant to me? Which is one of the pieces of the work that we're doing with RIHANNA. But one of the challenges I would give you folks, because you're so creative, is how is it that we could translate the impact of what we're doing to get folks re-engaged in terms of ending AIDS? Because here's the deal. We actually have the medicine. We have the tool to end AIDS. And the question really now is, if not now, then when? And there's a lot of illnesses that folks may have seen that we've never really ended. Malaria, polio, that we actually have the tools to end. I don't know if folks saw about 3 weeks ago, there was sadly in Syria, there's a lot of the polio workers are being killed by the rebels. There was a picture of a young boy getting a oral vaccine for polio. Another issue, as I mentioned, is resources. And when I say resources, I not only mean money, which is obviously one of the bigger issues, but also resources in terms of people. One of the great privileges of working in the AIDS community and working with MAC is we've had the best minds. And one of the things I'm concerned about now is the best minds are now no longer going into AIDS. They're going into other fields, which certainly deserve them. But at the same time, we want to ensure that we have the best minds and the best solutions. Because what we've found is, we've had our own healthcare revolution here in the United States. Healthcare is hard to get. And if you're living in a poor country, it's even harder to get. And so unfortunately, AIDS is much more likely to infect poor people and people who are stigmatized. And I'm sure people have seen, sadly, the incredible backlash we've had against gay men and lesbians in India, in Nigeria, in Russia. It always feels like we take like 5 steps forward and then 15 steps to the side or backward. But all of those laws basically pushes people, basically into the bushes and away from healthcare, unfortunately. All right, so with that, I would just like to say thank you. I really appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I feel like, honestly, as I mentioned, there's a lot of good work to do in this field. I think there's a lot of great thinkers in this room, and we would really enjoy you all engaging. It is an incredible thing that a company has figured out a way to do good and make money. And part of our business challenge is how do we keep that going and how do we continue to raise so much money? I was thinking earlier that, in buying cars with my family, we have 2 kids, I always think about, what's the safest car? And they always say, this is a sort of plug for Toyota, that Toyota is the best car. And then you get this great car and you think, well, how long can the car keep going? And part of me feels in terms of the Viva Glam model, one of the things that we think of is how long can we keep doing this? And we've really been able to sustain it, I think, because there's so many key elements there. But at the same time, we need to have, I think, fresh ideas to continue to raise the money to make the difference that we've been able to make. So I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak here at Creative Mornings and also New York Public Library. And here now, hopefully, is the super interesting part, because I've gone on way too long, and to really get your questions and your thoughts. And I'm also going to pull a little bit on the Mac people here, because many of them are bigger experts on some of the topics you might ask, besides me. So with that, I think we have some runners.